coming up on episode 60.
So it was like the more I researched, the more I was like, wow, this is going to be fun because you could do so many different fusions. The spices are similar. They use a lot of cumin. They use a lot of cilantro, coriander. There was cumin was very high, and a lot of the spices and sauces they use. So I thought it was very interesting.
Welcome to another episode of The Little Radio Show. My name is Sandra Fernandez, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Juan, Alanis, and Anjelica Cazares, and we're bringing you small talk about big topics. This week, we're joined by two of my favorite people, Karen Naumann, who's a communications officer at the Consulate General of Israel for the Southwest United States, and Vianney Rodriguez, food blogger and talent extraordinaire behind Sweet Life food blog, are going to be talking to us a little bit about the One Table, Two Families Fusion Recipe Contest. Just a reminder that you can catch us every week on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Central Time on hmsnetradio.org. Our show archives and the link to our iTunes and Stitcher channels are available at thelittlерadioshow.com. The Little Radio Show is brought to you in partnership with juanofwords.com and HispanicHouston.com. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this week. I am especially pleased because we've got two fabulous people joining us. Karen Naumann, who is Communications Officer for the Consulate General of Israel of the Southwest United States, is actually in the studio with us. And our great friend, Vianney Rodriguez, is joining us once again through the telephone. Vianney is a wonderful recipe creator. She is the driving force behind Sweet Life food blog. She is also one of the authors of Latin Twist, a unique Latin-inspired cocktail cookbook that you just have to check out. Now, one of the reasons I'm so happy about having both of them here is that they're here to talk about a project that they're collaborating on, and we're the ones who actually introduced them a year ago at the launch party for the radio station, for this radio show. So I'm doubly pleased. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you for that introduction, as well as the introduction a year ago at the launch party, when I met Vianney for the first time and discussed an idea I had been cooking up myself for a while, but meeting you two there and having the discussions would really pulled this project together.
Yes, thank you for having me, first of all, and then the lovely introduction. And yes, I know it's been a year, and I was serving up cocktails at your party for the Little Radio Show, so this excites me that a year later we're finally coming together to do this, so it's going to be good.
We appreciated the cocktails, just FYI.
And I think the one thing we didn't say is that Vianney is just a rock star. So all around.
Yes.
Stop.
a food and drink star.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I am going to just dive right in. Since we just mentioned food and the project is all about food, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let Karen tell us a little bit about what they're here to talk about, and let the two of you tell us what it is you want us to know. So take it away, Karen.
I want you to know that the project that we refer to is called One Table, Two Families. And the two families are the Israeli culture and the Latino culture. And when we looked at those two cultures, one thing we saw they have in common is a passionate love for delicious food. And so we couldn't resist by pulling that together for this project, One Table, Two Families. And of course, we're involving all of Houston in this project because it's online and offline.
So, Vianney, why don't you tell us a little bit more about how the contest runs, and what do we mean? What actually it involves?
Okay, the contest is open as we speak. It started October the 1st, and what we're asking is for submissions of original recipes. Our first recipe that we're going to highlight is, I hope I say this correctly, Karen, shazuka. So yeah. It is, it's an egg breakfast dish that is very similar to the Latin version of ours is like huevos rancheros. So what we're looking for is for people to create their own spin on this dish, photograph it, create an original recipe, submit it, and give, a little twist on what they on the recipe.
So, as I understand it, the contest is currently open, and you're taking submissions, and you're also already taking voting on the submissions that have been on the recipes that have already been submitted. Again, can you tell me, Karen, a little bit about how the contest runs, what some of the rules are, and what you're looking for in these recipe creations? Because as I understand it, what is actually being the challenge, as I understand it, the challenge is actually to create a fusion between, and again, I hope I say it correctly, shakshuka and huevos rancheros, to create something that sort of merges both flavors or both cultures or bridges both of them in an original recipe.
Exactly, and fusion food is all the rage globally in the food scene. So, I would be remiss if I did not point out that Sandra is actually the brainchild behind the technical setup of this contest. And you can enter the recipe and a photograph of your recipe on Tumblr, israelsw.tumblr.com. And then we have photographs on our Facebook page. We have a photo album dedicated to One Table, Two Families on the Israel in Houston Facebook page, where if you have friends or family or other Houstonians or just want to take a look at the recipes and like them, and that is going to help determine the top 4 recipes that make it to the semifinals.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. Vianney, can you tell us a little bit about how, well, I know that you went through and you did some research into the food of Israel as part of the setup for this. Can you tell us a little bit about what you found, how it compares and contrasts with Latino food, and how we ended up with the quote-unquote huevos rancheros contest?
I think when I went to do the research, I was very happily surprised. Just like Karen said, fusion food right now is so hot, and I think Houston does it so very well. I mean, there's, just being Texas, we have a lot of influences from, German, the Czechs. So this was a great idea, a fusion of Israeli and Mexican food. And then when I went to research it, there was so many similarities in just say like the tahini. The tahini sauce is made with sesame seeds, and it's, finely ground, and it's used for sauces as base, in recipes. And that's very similar to our moles, which are, the bases are nuts. And they're used as a sauce, as a mole. And then there was like the pita bread. The pita bread, of course, it's fluffy. It's, it can be filled, it can be topped. And that's a lot similar, to the masa products that we use of gorditas, tortillas, and sopes. So it was like the more I researched, the more I was like, wow, this is going to be fun, because you could do so many different fusions. The spices are similar. They use a lot of cumin. They use a lot of cilantro, coriander. There was cumin was very high, and a lot of the spices and sauces they use. So I thought it was very interesting, the similarities, but also like they have I don't know, Karen, is it Zoom, the Yemen fiery hot sauce?
Yes.
Is that okay? That's made from green chiles, and it's a hot, spicy paste that they use over poultry, meat, and I thought that was very funny because we use a lot of our salsas and hot sauces have the base of poblanos, so there's a lot of similarities. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun for people to create a fusion between both the cultures.
All right, Vianney, I think I'm getting hungry listening to you describe all that tasty food. But
when I was doing the research, I was like, I would eat that. I would fuse this together.
I think when you said mole, I was like, okay, you got me, because I'm a huge fan of mole. But going back to the huevos rancheros and the comparison, and I'm not gonna try to chop up the name, but what is the difference? Like when you look at it, like what is the difference in the cuisine, like that you see, like? I guess in that particular dish, and how do you envision that kind of coming together?
Oh my God. I like when we were talking about the project and the first recipe came up, I was like, wow, you could do it so many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
But the shazuka has the huevos, the eggs poached in a like a fiery red tomato sauce.
Okay.
The huevos rancheros are usually scrambled, but it's
Mm.
still the base of the tomato sauce, the cilantro, the cumin, the oregano, and it has eggs. So
Wow.
I'm excited to see the submissions already since the contest has been open, but I feel like there could be so many twists fusing both the cultures together. So I don't know, I'm
Absolutely.
excited. And then I get to cook these recipes, the finalists, so
So
I'm
where is
excited
the
to-
party going to be at when you cook those?
Exactly. That's going to be
That's
the
fun.
favorite part of my job at
The
the end of the
tasting,
month.
yes.
The tasting, Vianney's cooking of the top recipes that get the most likes on social media.
Wow.
And then from there, if it's not already delicious and wonderful enough, I can't wait to see what Houstonians do. And I hope that Houstonians do just what you said. Everyone is going to start looking up Israeli food and Israeli cooking, and all the Israelis and Jewish community in Houston is going to be looking up, Latino cooking. But the top winners also get a prize.
I was gonna ask about it. I don't get in the kitchen unless there's incentive. I'm gonna be honest.
I have two great incentives.
All
for you.
right.
The first runner-up gets a gift certificate to Hugo's Restaurant,
Oh, that's
which,
nice.
as all of us that read the Houston Chronicle know, that they were just ranked number 2 restaurant in Houston, and it's delicious if you haven't been there already.
Yeah, I haven't had the pleasure of having
It's
this person here take me yet. So
Oh,
thank you so
Hugo's
much. Am I putting that out
is
there?
one of my favorite restaurants in Houston, and Hugo Ortega, who is the chef, the brainchild behind it, is a frequent award nominee for the James Beard Award, which is the National Foodie Awards. Like, only the best of the best get nominated for this, and he's been nominated like 4 or 5 years in a row. But Hugo's is really, really wonderful example of it's not Tex-Mex. This is traditional Southern Mexican cooking.
Right, and then
That's good.
That's a really good
That-
incentive.
the
But-
second
Yes, that
incentive.
is one of the best restaurants in Houston. I would say in Texas, that is one of the best restaurants. He is so awesome.
It is one of my favorite, and I'm so glad we're doing this in Houston. It's such a foodie town. The big prize winner gets a weekend getaway to the Woodlands Waterway Marriott Hotel and Convention Center.
Oh, that's
and who
nice.
couldn't
Very
use
awesome.
a weekend
Yes.
getaway,
A
right?
staycation. of sorts.
Exactly.
And of course, they get the bragging rights, and they will be promoted through Consulate's social media channels. Vianney was going to give them a shout out on all of her social media channels. We'll be putting this out to the media as well. And the really cool thing about this is the pilot of this particular program. So that how well that this does in Houston, the intent is that the consulate is then going to take it to some of the other cities in their area. So what is your area?
That's a great question. The Consulate General of Israel, the Southwest United States, we're based in Houston, but we actually have a 6-state area. That's Arkansas, Kansas, Louisiana, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Texas.
Whoa. Say that again.
I know. Say that 5 times then backwards. We focus on political culture and academic affairs with a dedicated outreach to Hispanic affairs, just because it's so very important in the Southwest United States.
No.
So can I participate from the other states if I was from Louisiana or Oklahoma?
That's a great question. We selected Houston to be our pilot program city, so only
Only
Houstonians
Okay.
get to enter this
Okay.
contest.
So if you're not a Houstonian, please invite your friends and family who are to participate. But, okay, so going back to this, the Israeli consulate. Why Latino culture? I mean, that seemed a little bit like a disconnect to if I didn't know any better, it's like Latino culture, Israel, different parts of the world. Why this fusion?
I think you just hit it on the head, Sandra, if you didn't know any better, because when we took time to look at it, just as Vianney was talking about, the food, the passion for family, the deep, rich, ancient cultures. It's a synergy, and it makes sense. And we want to bring mutual awareness of our cultures to ourselves so that we can start building a relationship. Both Latino culture and Israelis are can-do-it kind of people, and we think once we get together, look what just happened from us going to a launch party. Can you imagine when we start getting on a massive scale of Houstonians?
So I am incredibly biased. Vianney would absolutely be my very first choice for something like this. But Vianney, I want to hear from you why you're participating in this.
First of all, I mean, just the two cultures together, it's like a powerhouse. I mean, these two cultures share a love of a passion and love for food, for family, for tradition, for coming together. So I'm all behind anything that advocates coming together, to cook together, to enjoy a meal together. So when Karen and Sandra approached me with this, I was like, yes, yes, yes. Can I enter? Can I win? Can I be part of this? So I'm excited. I think it just, any kind of fusion of food, cultures together, sharing passion for cooking and spending family time, together in the kitchen, I'm all about that. So I'm excited to be a part of this pilot program. So I'm hoping it does very well and moves, continues to grow.
As a big fan of your
I was going to say the same thing. I hear you talking words, Vianney, and just your passion, and I know you bring that stuff to your food. And we've had this conversation before. Me, you, and Juan and your sister actually sat around and had a good laugh ourselves. But hearing you talk about those passion words and you bring that stuff to food, I think the Consulate made a good choice. I have to be honest. I think they made an amazing choice. You're just like Sandra. You would have been my first pick.
Now, for those people out there who have never heard of you before, let's talk a little bit about...
Blasphemy.
Let's talk a little bit about what Sweet Life is and how you got started.
Sweet Life is, like I like to say, a running diary of my childhood plates. So Sweet Life touches on my Mexican heritage, my parents, my grandparents, being born and raised in Texas, my college years, my married life. So it touches on everything, all the plates I've had in my childhood. So it's, Tex-Mex, Mexican food, Texas food. It's a lot of cocktails. My book, I dedicated my cocktail book to my abuelita because when we were smaller, when I was younger, she entertained a lot, and she always had, food ready for everyone. She had, cocktails, and she would always tell me kind of, when people come to your house and they're going to eat, you're giving them a piece of yourself. So you need to, put love into your food. You need to have, the table set, and you need to always have a great cocktail. So from her, I think, at the younger age, she'd be like, taste this and taste this, So it was kind of just like, it's an extension of her, and it's an extension of my parents, and it's everything that I've grown up eating and everything I want to share, and, introducing people that, to a little bit of me. So I think that's what it is, Sweet Life. So.
Well, one of the reasons why Vianney is the perfect partner, I could not have asked for a better partner to go into this project than Vianney and Sandra. What Vianney brings to the table, literally, is not only her expertise and passion, but she is very media savvy, having built really through a blog and online presence, and that's what this is. This is an online contest that we're running. The other thing about Vianney that I've noticed in getting to know her is she has this attitude of, she wasn't born, going to chef school. She just tried and went in there and that's the Israeli spirit too. Well, let's give it a go and let's see what we can do.
Mm-hmm. She's got that raw natural talent.
Exactly.
So,
so she was the perfect partner.
Yeah.
Well, and
I say that in the most kind way, admiring way, Vianney. But no, I think you definitely do have very natural talent for what you do. I mean, even on this Instagram stories, when I see her stories, And I'm like, how did you come up with that idea to make this look so beautiful on something that's so temporary for 24 hours? And she's just like, oh, I just thought about it. And I thought it would be a good idea. So, I mean, she's definitely very, very innovative and forward thinking. But I think that...
and that's what excites me.
Yeah,
that's what excites me about the project, because I think the Israeli people are very passionate. You know, they're very dedicated, they're very motivated, and they're very willing to share. You sit down at a table and they're like, let's share a meal. Let me tell you how this recipe, they're very willing to share their recipes and how it came together and, the tradition of it. And that's what I love, because I think Latinos are like that too. They're just, sit down, let's eat. Let me tell you, how my abuelita made this and how so I think that's what excites me about this project, the passion behind it.
And I think the name of it is really what speaks to me also, One Table, Two Families, because it really is about family for us. When we sit down at a table, it really is about family and just being together. I mean, it doesn't, whatever's on the table doesn't matter as much as who's around the table and just the good time that you're having as a family. So I think that is something that's universal. I mean, for the Israeli and for the Latino culture, I'm sure it's something that's very similar.
Absolutely, especially in the Israeli culture. Israel, as you know, is really a land of immigrants that came post-World War II from all around the world, Jewish people from all around the world, and then it's right there in the Middle East with a tremendous Arabic influence. It's a fusion within itself, and they came together as one people. And we're here, and we've been here in Texas for many decades, and we feel like let's get to know each other now better on a personal level, beyond the headlines that you might see about Israel. There's a whole interesting, rich culture there.
Yeah, and I think Texas is probably like the Tex-Mex thing is like very, very much the same, where it's a fusion of what started out as Mexico and then evolved into the United States, and so it's very much a fusion. So we do have a lot of influence from cultures. But one of the things that I did want to mention was this quote that I'm reading directly off a piece of paper here. It says, "Israel, your consul." I know I'm gonna butcher this, and my accents aren't that great. So is it Agravon?
Agranov.
I knew that one. I knew it. It's, he quotes, Israel and Latino cultures share a love of food and family, which is one of the core of our many rich traditions. I cannot agree more. There was a time where I would watch my grandmother work in Mexico, up in the Sierras of San Luis Potosí, and she would do things a certain way because that's just the way it was handed down multiple like generations ago. And from trial and error, she knew and she picked up ways, and she taught my mother, and my mother kind of gets mad at me because I'm like, she's like, that's not the way I showed you. I'm like, but Mom, we don't, I don't have a rolling pin. I'm sorry. Now I have a machine. We're making it easier, right? You're like, Mom, I'm making a fusion. I'm making a fusion.
She was going to fuse something.
Right? But I love that, because that is definitely within our core. Like, if you can open our hearts, you would see our family and food, basically.
Exactly.
So I love that.
Exactly. And one of the things that I learned, discovered myself, I think growing up in the United States, I thought of Israeli food being Jewish food, hence a New York deli. And it's totally not like that. It's more like the Hispanic, as Vianney alluded to, and just like Middle Eastern ingredients and fresh ingredients and healthy eating too. So it's been a wonderful discovery for me too, to learn what Israel food is really like as opposed to what we think it's like.
So how long have you worked with the Israeli consulate, Karen?
That's a great question. I've worked with the Israeli consulate going on 4 years.
It must be a very interesting job.
I love the job. I love the people. I love, they're always trying to bring culture, not only from food, but dance and medical solutions, and work with the United States of America, which they consider their biggest and best ally in the world.
So what does the consulate do in the Southwest specifically? I mean, you just mentioned a few things. would never have occurred to me until we got started on this particular project that this was the sort of thing that a consulate did, to bring a project that was actually to expose culture and to fuse stuff. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of the other things that y'all do?
That's a great question, Sandra. And honestly, you think of a consulate or an embassy, you think of a diplomatic mission, and that is a big part of what we do, the political relations with states and Congress and whatnot. But a lot of what is exactly this, to bridge cultural awareness and bring an affinity and maybe create something new out of it. And that's what we're hoping this is a beginning of a relationship, and it will spawn new and bigger things that we can do together.
I'm going to recap the logistics of the contest a little bit, because we've gone around it, and I like to, you know me, I like to be thorough. I like to dot my I's and cross my T's. And so what this is the one table, two families recipe contest. And the challenge is to create an original fusion recipe to combine the flavors and the cultures of Israel with the Latino culture into the creation of this shakshuka / huevos rancheros recipe. You're taking recipe submissions through October 31st, and voting is open right now on the recipes that have already been submitted. So if you don't want to participate by creating your recipe, you can participate by voting. 4 semifinalists will be selected, 2 from Facebook voting and 2 from Tumblr voting. And what that means is that the community gets to decide who the most popular recipes, the favorite recipes are in both of them. Vianney is going to cook these 4 dishes for a selection of judges for the final judging event, and then a finalist and a runner-up will be chosen for the prizes. Did I get that correct?
You got that correct.
Fabulous.
And we're literally at the end going to have an event that is one table, and both families of people that are friends of ours in the Hispanic community and Latino community, as well as the Israeli Jewish community here in Houston, to come together and celebrate and start this relationship and let this to be the beginning of us doing more, bigger, and better things together.
So, Vianney, before we wrap this up, and without giving cheating tips to people, I know that you did provide some recommendations in the news release that got sent out. So can you tell some people things that they might want to keep in mind as they create their original recipe?
I would, of course, give it your own personal spin, but try to fuse both the cultures together. But I would, a quick tip, I would use the seasoning, the spices. I think that would give the dish a different lift, a different edge on the other dishes. Look at your chiles and your spices and mix and match between both the cultures, and I think it'll be delicious.
And that does sound delicious, and I can't wait to test these out. For our listeners, we will be posting links to all of the sites that we discussed, including where you can find all of the rules and regulations, how to submit, and everything on the show notes at thelittleradioshow.com. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Vianney. I hope to see you and hear you on the show again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
And the other thing is we will probably be looping back to announce who the winners were.
Definitely.
And in the shameless self-promotion part of this show, I have a question for you. Will you take a moment and let us know if you enjoy the podcast? What do you like about it? What are we doing well, and what can we improve? Please send us a comment on Facebook or Twitter and tag us. We always appreciate feedback from our listeners. You can find links to all of our social channels on thelittleradioshow.com. Thank you for joining us for another episode of The Little Radio Show. We invite you to check out our iTunes and our Stitcher channels and leave us a rating or a review. You can find the link to both channels at thelittleradioshow.com.